Thank you for joining me today. I'm Kathy Connard, a technical rep for Turf Trade. Some of you may remember me from my consulting days. Water management still is and always has been the focus of my 30-year career. Today I want to talk to you about how water quality and soil chemistry impact everything that's important to how you do your job. We'll look at things like pesticide efficacy, nutrient uptake and availability, water movement, the health of your turf, and let's not forget about the aesthetics and the playability. Many chemical and biological processes are dependent not only by how much water you have, but also on the pH levels of both your water and your soil. pH problems can occur if pHs are too high or too low. So what happens if you have a pH level that's too high? Well, many of the metabolic processes that the plant goes through can be affected and not be as efficient. The roots will also have problems taking up nutrients if your pH levels are too high. So all of those granular fertilizers or those fertilizer sprays that you're putting down are not going to be as available and will be leached away instead of being used efficiently by the turf. If your pH levels are too high in your tank mixes, you can run into something called alkaline hydrolysis. And what alkaline hydrolysis is it basically breaks down that pesticide molecule so that it's no longer available or very inefficient. So you know how expensive those pesticide sprays are. You want to make sure that you talk to the manufacturer, and I'll show you on the next slide some recommendations. You want to make sure those pH levels are where they need to be so you get the most out of those pesticide sprays. What happens if your pHs are too low? Well, if your pHs are too low, you can get a magnesium deficiency. And we all know magnesium will affect the photosynthetic activity of the plant. So what do we do if our pHs are too high? Well, if pHs are too high in the spray tank, you can easily add a pH buffer. They're inexpensive. You add the buffer and then you test the pH of the tank mix either with a pH meter. Again, they're about $100. They're not expensive, or pH strips, whichever you have. And you just keep adding the buffer until you get that tank mix where it needs to be, depending on what products or nutrients are in there. And now, it used to be easier to correct soil pH problems than to treat the water. This is no longer true. There are some safe acids out there, some synthetic acids out there that make it easy to treat the water. Just make sure that the product you're buying, and I'll go into some products later on in the presentation, that are labeled to treat the water as well as the soil. One thing to keep in mind, if you want to raise the pH, I get questions about this all the time, the differences between calcium carbonate versus calcium sulfate. If you want to raise the pH, you need calcium carbonate. That is lime. If both your calcium and your magnesium levels are low, then you may want to look at a dolomitic lime. In order to lower the pH, you can use sulfur. Not as common because not as easy to do, and you have to be careful. Acidifying fertilizers like ammonium sulfate, or again, the synthetic or the safe acids that are out there that are easily added to your spray tanks. And some are actually tank mix compatible and safe. So again, read the labels, talk with the distributor or manufacturer rep to make sure you're getting something that's safe for you to use. This chart shows some commonly used products and how the pH of the tank mix really dictates the performance that you can get out of it. Take a look at Daconil, chlorothalonil. If your tank mix is at 4, you have 4 hours. But look how quickly, if you jump up to a pH of 8, you only have 10 minutes to get that spray out before it's going to go through alkaline hydrolysis and those molecules are going to break apart. Look at chlorpyrifos, that's another one, very dramatic. At a pH of 7, you have over a month before alkaline hydrolysis is going to start. But that pH level goes up just 1 point, up to 8, a level of 8, and you only have 1.5 days. So you can see the pH levels are very important for different chemicals. Talk with your manufacturers. Each of them have the ideal, the optimum pH levels that you need to get optimum performance out of the chemicals that they are selling. When we're talking about water quality and soil chemistry, we absolutely have to talk about salts and how they impact what you do every day. Bicarbonates are a type of salt, just like sodium is, just like chloride is, as well as a few others. So what happens if you have high bicarbonates? Well, first, what level is too high of bicarbonates? There are some scientists out there that say keep bicarbonates less than 120. There are others that if you were dealing with multiple salts, sodium, chloride, bicarbonates, etc., may want you to keep that number below 100. So it really depends on everything that you have going on your golf course, but a good rule of thumb is if you keep it less than 120, your bicarbonate levels are okay. So what happens though if we have high bicarbonate levels? Well, you end up with poor infiltration of water going into, through the surface and into the root zone, blocked pore spaces throughout the root zone, and you can also tie up nutrients. You can also increase any sodium problems, as well as raise your pH levels. What happens is when water containing bicarbonates dries in the soil, you get insoluble salts, calcium and magnesium carbonates. These insoluble salts are what reduces the water infiltration and the nutrient uptake availability and the use efficiency of those nutrients, as well as the water. So what do we do if we have high bicarbonates? There are safe acids or synthetic acids that will dissolve the carbonate deposits. And now you have freed up the soluble calcium and magnesium. This is done because the calcium deposits turn into carbon dioxide when they're acidified. So now you can free up that calcium and magnesium, and they become less susceptible to being bound up and tied up in the soil profile. So what happens and what do you do if you have saline irrigation water or salts like chloride in your soil profile? Well, just like with bicarbonates, high salt levels can cause poor water infiltration, non-uniform movement and distribution throughout the soil profile, and impact nutrient uptake and availability. The difference is how you solve the salt problems. There are very few products that you can use. Calcium sulfate that we use when you have sodium issues is not going to help you if you have a non-sodium salt problem. The best way to remediate salt problems are to leach the soluble salts through the soil profile. Now, if you have heavy clay or push-up greens, you are not going to get a true leach, but you can flush those salts past the root zone. And the way to do that is through the leaching process so that you can move those salts past. Now, the only product I would recommend would be a good penetrating soil wetting agent to help with that leaching or flushing of the soluble salts through the soil profile so you get them past the roots. Some of you may have the option of diluting a high salt water with a low salt water. Maybe one well is better salt-wise than pond water or vice versa. That is why we recommend that when you do your water testing, that you test all water sources. High sodium levels. High sodium levels, again, it's a salt, so it can clog soil pores, reduce water infiltration, impact water movement throughout the root zone profile, and impact nutrient uptake and availability. In addition, we can see some decreases in your soil aeration or oxygen levels. Good drainage, once again, is very important, and you must also leach sodium throughout the soil profile. The difference is with sodium, you're going to need to use calcium sulfate. You're going to want to flush with the calcium sulfate, and that is because the calcium has to displace the sodium ions on the soil colloid. So now the sodium is freed and can be flushed past the root zone. If you add the safe acid I've been talking about, as well as a penetrating soil wetting agent, that's going to improve the process and help you to really manage those high sodium levels in your soil. A few things that I'd really like to emphasize when you're trying to find out your water quality as well as your soil chemistry is you can really get valuable information, and it doesn't cost a whole lot if you do soil and water testing. Don't just test your soils. A lot of you are testing your soils in spring and fall, but water sometimes gets forgotten until there's a problem that you just can't get a handle on. Water testing is just as important. The two really go hand in hand. If you have various water sources, it's best to test them all. The good news for all of you is with advances in technology, there are now products, combination products, that are available for you to use when you have soil and or water quality issues. These combination products allow for you to have less products in the tank. They save you money, so now you have money to use elsewhere. You get multiple benefits using just one product, and you can effectively manage salts either in your soils and also in your water. I mentioned several times throughout the presentation new safe acids. pH Agent is exclusive to Turf Trade, and it is a product, don't let the name fool you, it's not just for lowering pH, but it's a product that treats both water and soils. It's very safe, it's tank mix compatible with a lot of different products. It can help you to reduce all types of salt levels. And we added a penetrating soil surfactant. Of course, I had to add a wetting agent, right? To enhance the infiltration, distribution, and drainage into and throughout salt-affected soils. We also added the surfactant so that you could get more complete coverage of the product throughout the root zone on the soil particles, and to help you move sodium more effectively from the root zone. I wanted to show you some research that was done on a golf course because I don't want you just taking my word for it or anybody's word for how products work. Please be sure to ask for research. And there's more research on this product, but we don't have all day to go through all the research, so I pulled one out for you. And this happens to be a golf course that has high pH bicarbonates and sodium problems. So we did GNDVI test so that you could see prior to the treatment in April. You can take a look and you can see there's not a whole lot of green there, a lot more red. But after 6 weeks of pH agent treatment, you can see the images show, the image on the right shows a lot less stressed turf, more chlorophyll, better color, and increased photosynthesis because of the pH agent treatments. Penetrating soil surfactants, wetting agents, are very important for leaching salts past the root zone. With penetrating surfactants, there are many non-ionic surfactant choices, but when you're dealing with high salts in your soils or high salts in your water, it's really important to get a blend of anionic and non-ionic surfactants. We wanted to take the soil wetting agents one step further, and we added acids to the anionic as well as the anionic and non-ionic components. And the reason we did this is by adding the acid as well as having an anionic component, because anionics quickly flush and move water throughout the root zone. But by adding the acid component, now we can also manage bicarbonates. We can also manage not only saline soils, but soils that are high in sodium as well, making the flushing process that much better. So by combining anionic surfactants, non-ionic surfactants, organic acids, and some sugars, now you really get a penetrating surfactant that is designed just for moving salts past the root zone and remediating poor water quality that can affect your soils. Some of you are going to think I've lost my mind because I'm going to talk to you about a Foley or calcium product for those of you that have salt issues. Our Foley Precise Calculated was developed because I want you to be able to manage salts within the turf cell. We talk a lot about the soils, a lot about water, but many of you dealing with salt issues, your turf grass is taking up some of those salts into its turf cells. So we put together, again, exclusive to Turf Trade, a blend of calcium, carbon, and we added a generous amount of anti-stress and water management amino acids. You can see the water management amino acids I chose are glycine, betaine, and proline. We also added some glycine. Why? We know calcium, king on the periodic table of elements. It's a very large molecule, and sometimes it's difficult to get that product to enter into the plant, and it's also difficult to get it to tank mix. Sometimes it's not tank mix compatible. So by adding glycine, we got rid of all those problems. Now you can tank mix it with anything, and it's very plant available. The calculated also helps to reduce the negative effects of high sodium in the turf cells. How do we do that? We stabilize the membranes and the cell walls. Now we can manage how nutrients and water move throughout that turf cell. Other amino acids that we've added, I can't tell you all my secrets, so I can't tell you everything that's in there, but some of the other amino acids that we included help to alter that membrane structure. So now it's going to work in combination with calcium to allow the plants to adapt to water deficiencies as well as any poor water quality conditions. This low salt phosphate happens to be one of my favorite products that Turf Trade just introduced. It not only contains a phosphate, but you also get silicon plus certain amino acids plus carbon, allowing the turf to have a higher tolerance to not only disease, but water deficits and salt stress. The silicon that we added is tank mix compatible, so we don't have to worry about that. A lot of you shied away from silicon because it was difficult to tank mix. It would gel everything up. The silicon in this formulation is tank mix compatible. We also, once again, chose specific amino acids, ones that will help you to better manage water and salts within the turf cell, help you to increase photosynthesis. We chose, I'll tell you one of the ones we chose, arginine, and the reason we did that is it's so important for nitrogen storage and transport and to optimize your nitrogen use efficiency. It also is a precursor for polyamines, which increase the activity of antioxidant enzymes. So you can see we paid attention to every detail with this particular product because we wanted to give you a product that was going to help you and be beneficial. Not just make a combination product to throw a bunch of products together, but there was a plan in place for what we wanted the products to do. Many of you are using phosphates already. We wanted to give you a little bit more than just disease control, pythium management with a phosphate. Now you get a combination product that's going to give you multiple results for not a whole lot of money. I hope you found the information in this presentation useful today. If you'd like to see more of our videos, please visit our YouTube channel at Turf Trade Science for Effective Solutions. I enjoyed spending my time with you. Thank you.